16, verse 11. You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence. Anybody have a little joy this morning? I know some of you did. I saw it happen. And the pleasures of living with you forever. Now, you're like, well, Matthew, that's just one verse. You can't do a whole, just watch. It's there. All right, now some of this is going to seem obvious, but don't tune out. I'm probably going to repeat this definitely until I get sick of hearing it, and maybe I'll stop just short of you get sick of hearing it, but this is God's church. It's not my church. It's not your church. I mean, we belong to it. We are members of his body, but it doesn't belong to us. And so if it's God's church, God is the one that shows the way. Now, I want to be clear, how does he do that? It's guidance, not control. Okay? So he guides us. If we're submitted, if we're yielded, if we're surrendered, God shows the way. He keeps wanting to fall asleep on me. In order for us to go the way with God, we have to trust him. That requires surrender. It requires yieldedness. I don't know if that's the proper tense, but to be yielded, to be vulnerable, like to just open yourself up. And if I can just be real blunt, sometimes when we surrender, when we yield, we feel things that we might not want to feel. And I want to encourage you, even this morning as God's Spirit has been moving, if things are bubbling up that are uncomfortable, you're like, oh no, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to think about. God only brings things to the surface because he wants to deal with them and heal them and restore. Okay? He's not trying to make you uncomfortable, but it might be uncomfortable. Most of you are going to be familiar with the process of refining gold. Part of that process is it takes a lot of heat and pressure. Anybody feeling heat and pressure today? And what happens is the impurities, the things that don't belong, they come to the surface and then they get skimmed off. So I just want to prepare you if you're dealing with something like that this morning. God is here to guide, and he's here to heal, to skim whatever's coming up to the surface. He wants to take it, but he doesn't take things and just leave a vacuum. He wants to replace. So just like the act that we did of coming and laying down what we're carrying, laying down our burdens, that's a scriptural concept. We don't just lay down our burdens and say, wow, that feels nice. No, we also turn our hands back over and we receive what God wants to give in its place. See, if you leave a vacuum, something's going to fill that space. That's enough. I was about to go into a material from a class that I teach, and we don't need to do that this morning. So, God shows the way. Prayer of surrender says, I don't always know the way. That's for some of us that think we're pretty smart and got it put together. That's a good place to start. Just admit, maybe I don't know the way, but I trust the one who does. So if God shows the way, and this is for you as individuals, but I'm speaking to the church body, because I had a conversation this week with a fellow pastor up in Moline, and he and I are actually hoping to start up a coaching relationship where I have lots of people that help me in my life, but my friend Lee is going to be coaching me on some things that I really want to be intentional to grow in my leadership. And one of the things that we talked about was, I don't remember. I just totally lost that train of thought. Where were we going? I don't know the way. Yeah, there it is. I got it back. I hadn't talked with Lee in a while, and so I was sort of, he said, how are things? They planted their church in Moline about the same time our church was planted back in 2011, but he hasn't kept up and said, how are things going? And I had this very clear thought. I know it was from the Lord, and it was simply this, and this was the whole reason I called him. The place that we're going as a body is a place we've not been before. It's that to use a Star Trek term, it's uncharted territory. Like, that's where we're going, and we're going joyfully, but we're just saying we don't have a map, we don't know the way, and we haven't been there before. Okay, so we need God to show the way. And here's a surprising answer in this short little verse of a psalm, that God shows the way, and God also gives joy on the way through his presence. I talked last week about how that's the place our vision has to be anchored. It comes from presence, not pressure. We're not forcing strategic plans that come from a marketing playbook. We are seeking the manifest presence of God, where things become clear, where we see things through spiritual eyes, through a kingdom lens, and we just have to look at it that way. But there is joy and life in his presence. I'm about to chuck this pad if it keeps falling asleep. So he says there, granting me the joy of your presence. The psalmist is not rooting joy in outcomes or comfort or ease. Now, if we're real honest, do we try to do that? I'll be joyful when it works out, and I trust and I believe it's going to work out, but I'll be joyful then. Once a little bit more pressure's off of me, once I take the next step, then no. We root ourselves deeply in the joy of God right where we're at. It is not rooted in the outcome. I repeat things that I really want you to catch, right? The outcome is not your responsibility. The results are not your responsibility. The growth of the church is not your or my responsibility. Our responsibility is to be rooted and grounded in love, living immersed in the presence of Jesus, and then going and doing life, letting that joy and that presence leak out all over people everywhere you go. That's it. That's it. And that's where the joy comes from. It comes from his presence, not circumstances. Now that's easy, we say, yeah, we get that. Here's the other thing about joy. Joy is honest about the pain and the circumstances that might also be present. And that's okay. But I am not basing my trust or my joy or my choices on those realities, but I am acknowledging, hey, not everything is fully submitted to the will of God. Not everything is perfected yet. Not every pain in my body is gone. Not every societal wrong has been set right. I mean, I could totally go on a tangent there, it feels like more things are wrong with every passing day. It feels like, right? And there is plenty. But my joy is not based on that. My joy is based on, I trust the one who said when he left to go back to the Father, I will be with you always. He's with us, and he knows the way. So that right there takes off a lot of the pressure. I don't have to drive. I don't have to run the map. I probably do need to wear a seatbelt, because I don't know. If I don't know where we're going, it might include some curves and hills, and even with Jesus driving, you might want your seatbelt on. Maybe more so. I don't know. Biblical joy is not the absence of sorrow. It's the assurance that we're not alone. And I want you to be encouraged by that this morning, church. We're not alone. And we're not just stumbling around in the dark trying to figure it out. Now, this is important because you know how big of a deal worship is. I mean, we value that. Just, that's one of the reasons we spend so much time doing it every time we gather. Worship does not create God's presence. I want to be clear about that. We can, do some tricks on the keyboard and like create a vibe, but you don't create God's presence. But what happens is we become awakened to it. Because through music is one of many, many ways that you might enter into worship. Okay? We're awakened to the reality of God's presence as we worship, as we encounter his love. Okay, I just got one more. God's presence doesn't end when the moment ends, when the season ends, or even when your life ends. See, that's part of why I can be joyful, because it's eternal. The joy that God allows me to walk in is an eternal possession that I already have now. There is no end in sight. It's not terminal. It's eternal. It's eternal. And again, I'm not talking about that means all circumstances are good and you're happy all the time and you have to fake it till you make it. But the foundation of joy doesn't need to be shaken because it is a permanent, rock solid foundation that starts the moment you encounter Jesus and goes on into eternity with no end. And I just have to tag one more thing onto that. And if this makes your brain smoke, talk to me later. The reality is the fullness of that eternity is also making its way backwards towards us in this moment. See, we're not just holding on till someday we get to more fullness. The reality of eternity is coming towards us even now. And that's why we have moments and seasons of breakthrough and of encounter, is that it's not just hold on to a promise and wait till I die. It's more and more fullness from glory to glory as God's kingdom and presence comes towards us. Now it's also not, I can say that and you can picture, well, Matthew, the further I go, it's always up and to the right. No, it's like this. I'm not saying it's just like always increase. It's more like waves of the ocean. There's crests and falls and ebbs and flows but we're going somewhere, and something, God's presence, his kingdom is coming towards us. That should give us joy. Okay, last one. Well, I've already started doing it, but God sustains us. He sustains us. That means he walks with us through the trials. We don't deny the present world, the present realities of our individual lives or of situations across our nation and across the globe. We don't have to deny that things that are outside of alignment with God's will are happening. But it does give us hope that there is meaning. There is hope in what God can do if the people of God become more awakened to his presence. He will sustain us. I'm trying to think how to contextualize this. One of the ways this looks is, in your life, you're coming into a hard season. Maybe you're freshly aware of it, or maybe something drastic has happened, right? And God would remind you of the 15 other times that something hard has happened or a season has been bad, and he's saying to you, I'm still in that business. I'm still doing it. I will sustain you. You will persist. You will make it. Again, not promising you won't be uncomfortable. Not promising you won't have to do things that you would prefer to not do. But I will sustain you. You will make it. You will be okay. Even a small act of trust matters. And that's something that we want to grow in. We want to grow in our trust with God. We're not just trying to escape trouble. We're trying to find God's presence. And we're trying to be more fully awakened to us, because the future promise shapes how we live now. And I want us to live. So I'm going to give you this little bit and then we're closing. I contextualize this a little different. We had a great men's breakfast yesterday. First one in a long time. If you were here, you know about that. And I just want to publicly thank my friend Deacon Buck, because he was the instigator. Oh, there goes my mic. Yeah. Like, we did it together, but I wouldn't have done it if you didn't bug me to do it. So, like, all of the fruit from that, I want to honor you publicly for that. And one of the things that we talked about, amongst many other things, is that we want to build resilient, non-anxious men. Like, I mean, you can't think of any place in societal structure or families or even the church that there wouldn't be great benefit. And I sort of want to extrapolate that out to all of us, that if we could become people who are more steady, and that only happens by being more deeply rooted in His presence. It means that when the winds come and the rains fall, we're rooted. We stand like a tree that's planted by the water. I shall not be moved. Sorry, I grew up on a hymn book, so there's always those kind of things going through my head. Okay, so let's land here. Psalm 16, verse 11. This is gently reorienting us. And I'll be honest, I don't know if this is like just today or like, because we're going towards Vision Sunday, but in today's prep, it was like, I don't know if this is just what we need today or if this is part of where we're going for the next couple of weeks. We'll see. But I felt this sense that we needed reoriented. So I just want to like recap what we've said this morning, how this verse reorients us. We don't have to know the way. God shows it. And I'm supposed to just be recapping, but I had this picture, and so I have to do this. For some of you, that looks like you have a flashlight and the beam only shines far enough to see one step in front of you. And we would like a floodlight that like we can see the next, mile. Might not be. But God knows the way and He shows it. We don't have to manufacture joy. God's presence gives it. Some of you have heard me say this before, and this is one of the reasons we're praying more God. It's easy to celebrate when there's something to celebrate. It's hard to celebrate if you're making it up. And so our prayer for you as a body is that God would do more things like what He's done this morning, but not just that. That God would give His presence in greater measure, that we would be more yielded, that we'd be more open, that we would encounter Him more deeply, more often. Yeah, because it gets easy to celebrate when there's something to celebrate. I want to just like, when we did our last water baptism, you guys found it really easy to celebrate. Now that's just one thing. That's not the only thing. But it was easy, right? So I don't know. I'm just saying, God, could we have more things that make it easy to celebrate? All right. And then lastly, we don't have to fear the future because God is with us forever. So I'm inviting you this morning, not necessarily to do something, but to allow the Spirit to reorient you. If you need to grow in trust, maybe this morning is the invitation to surrender again. And I don't know if this is a good phrase. We talk about being born again, like that's the process of meeting and encountering Jesus and becoming His disciple. Like that, and that's scriptural. But some of us were born again a long time ago, and we might need to be born again. Now, that's not a theological statement. I'm just talking about a reality that you might need a fresh drink. You might need another experience. Now, I'm not just talking about chasing experience for experience sake, but it's easy to just life. Okay? I think you get it. So let's stand. And I'd like to pray this prayer over us all together as a body. Hey, Jesus, will you show us the way of life? Will you give us more joy, which means more of your presence? Will you keep us awake to the reality of your kingdom? And will you help us live today as if eternity has already started, because it has? Would you empower us? Would you multiply our impact for the sake of those whom you love all around us? Lord, fill us up to overflowing and help us leak.